Welcome to today's session. I'm looking forward to leading us in some standing poses. And when we think about the physical side of yoga, that huge collection of practices includes different categories of poses. So the family of standing poses is pretty much a workout by itself. And some of the other families of yoga poses are backbends and forward bends and inversions. But we'll focus on the standing ones today. And I thought of a selection of 10 of them, just for a nice round number. And the first part of what we do is attuned to some breathing. So let's take a seated position in whatever way that you feel comfortable in sitting. And we'll practice what is called the physiological breath. And it's a big name for a very simple practice. And all we do is take an inhalation steady and long, and then at the what would usually be the end of that inhalation, we take a little bit more air in. And then the exhalation is done through the mouth with relaxed jaw and so forth, relaxed exhalation. And it goes like this, and you can join in at any point. Inhaling. That little bit of extra inhalation at the top, and then I think we can go for 5 more rounds in this manner. Inhaling, a little extra inhalation, relaxed exhalation. So making this the last cycle, if you're near to completing, and then completing. And then we'll take ourselves to the mat, lying on your back, with your legs bent and your feet on the floor. And we'll continue with another manner of breathing. And for today's practice, and while we're still moving about, you might look to have a chair, a couple of blankets, and I have 2 yoga blocks, and that will probably do it. So take your supine position, and once you're comfortable in lying down, We're going to do something with breathing, as I mentioned. Very, very simple. A long and steady inhalation. And then in this manner, or in this technique, inflate the abdomen on the inhalation, and then deflate the abdomen on the exhalation. And we'll go through those two phases of the breath. And see if, as you go along, you can observe the movement through the pelvis. So for my part, and not to predict your experience, it might be different, there's a kind of rocking movement. The pelvis moves posteriorly towards you and then anteriorly away from you. A little rocking movement like a cradle, like the pelvis is a cradle. And then let's take the feet off the floor and the knees towards the chest. Rest one hand at the front of each knee. And then exhale, bring the thighs a little bit closer to you. And inhale, push away as you straighten the arms. So we're continuing the movement through the pelvis, but with probably a little bit more potential for deep breathing, and especially on those exhalations. So that squeezing feeling through the abdominal pelvic organs is good for the digestion. And this is a good way to start a yoga practice. And now we'll add something to what you're doing. And if you slip your hands around the backs of the legs, on the inhalation, extend the legs up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, go back where you were, and thighs towards your chest. Big inhalation, big exhalation. Let's add an arm movement to this. So when your legs are fully extended, then bring your arms overhead and towards the floor. And then when you bend your knees in again, bring your hands back towards the legs or on the floor next to you. Inhale, and there's a hamstring stretch, shoulder stretch, and exhale, thighs towards your ribs. Let's go for one more round. And the next time that you extend the legs up, keep the legs extended. Just release your arms alongside your body and separate your feet and circle your feet. For the good health of your ankles and your toes and your foot bones, and then circling the other way. Good. And then replace your feet onto the floor. And take up one of your blocks and place it between your thighs. There's a few ways that you could do this. I'm going to have the block mid-range. You could have it narrow. You could have it even wide. And you can experiment with trying those different ones. But I've got it along the inseam of my legs. Now we're moving into the bridges, and the block will keep our legs, our knees tracking straight. Press your arms down by your side, and on the inhalation now lift your pelvis a little, and on the exhalation bring it back down. Continue in that manner. A little lift and back to ground. Let's do a few of these, and maybe as we go along, feel your 2 feet pressing down, your footprints, and maybe your lift will become a little bit higher if your back is ready to do that. Let's add that arm movement, and when your hips come up the next time, then bring your arms overhead. Hold your elevated position of your pelvis, your little back bend, and move your thighs away from you and your arms away from your thighs. And then exhale, arms come down and hips come to the floor. Do another one like that, where we'll stay up for a breath or two, and stretching thighs to knees and arms towards the tips of your fingers. Beautiful. Come all the way down, arms and pelvis. Let's take the block away and do something that asks you to work with strength as much as that back flexibility. So the next time that you lift up into your small back bend, we're going to go marching. So transfer your weight onto your left foot. Your arms are pressing into the floor and your shoulders too. And lift your right foot off the floor and your right knee towards you. Replace your right foot, switch over, press that footprint down, bring your left knee towards you, and then back down to the floor. So we're going to do that alternating for a few rounds. Right foot comes up off the floor, right knee towards you, and then left. And as much as you can, keep the upper body pressing down towards the floor. That's your shoulders and your shoulder blades. And your arms too. So there's very little sway to the pelvis as you go on with your marching movement. Just notice whether your chest muscles or your front of your throat, your neck have tightened up, and keep them more passive if you can. Let's finish on the left. And then articulate your spine and come down a vertebra at a time if you can, and all the way to resting your pelvis. We've done a really nice job there of warming up the spine in the back bending direction. Let's do a counter pose, and that's a twist. Bring your arms out wide from your shoulders. Walk your feet around to the right side. Step, step, step to the right side. Lift your hips off the floor, and then move your hips around so they line up with your feet. Lift your feet off the floor and keep your legs together, and then move your knees towards your left arm or your left armpit. You might want to turn your head to the right. You need not go all the way to the floor. In fact, it's better if you don't. Keep your right shoulder down. And then feet come to the floor. Bring your hips and your feet to center position. And then step your feet around to the left side. Lift your left hips off the floor. And then when you lift your feet off the floor, you're directing your knees towards your right arm. Your legs are coming on the diagonal towards your right side of your chest. Keep your left shoulder blade down. And then come center position, 2 feet on the floor. And let's do that all over again. So sometimes movements feel unfamiliar. So let's see if we can, second round, do this with a little bit more grace and ease. So the knees up and over to the left side, look to the right side, but keep the right shoulder anchored. Center, feet down, take a walk and move your hips over to the left side, knees in And towards your right arm, look to the left. Press your left side down and back round to center. Feet on the floor. Take a moment to line yourself up with your feet, your hips, and your torso and your head in one line. And we've done really nice work there in rotating the spine. And then flip over into all fours position, and we'll work on a couple of strengthening exercises. So moving from supine towards coming up, but not there yet. So in your all fours position, let's move the spine up and down. From flexion to extension. See if you can create some mobility through the shoulder blades and through the shoulders. Your neck incorporated in this. Such a nice thing to do for your spine. Take pause, and the spine is in neutral position. And now we bring in the strengthening part. So lift your right knee off the floor. Take your right leg behind you and tuck the toes of your right foot under. And then your toes are on the floor. Now we're going to move into lifting that leg and lifting the opposite arm at the same time. So right leg comes up, left arm extends out, and then replacing your hand, replacing your knee, and switching. But first, just extend the left leg back, tuck the toes under. It's a calf muscle stretch. It's a good stretch. Lift that leg, extend right arm, left leg, replace your hand, replace your knee. And without that calf muscle stretch, just lifting your leg, it's right leg, left arm, change, right arm, left leg. Let's alternate for a few rounds and see if you can be steady in your movement with the help of your core muscles. So the abdominal muscles lifted up into your body will help stabilize you. I believe we started with the left arm extended, yes. So right arm extends, left leg extends, and then let's take a quiet break in child's pose and with the elbows on the floor and back towards your knees. And resting your head onto your folded arms or your hands. Relax your shoulders. I've got one more movement in mind here. So come back to all fours. And in the spirit of adding strength to our practice, we're going to tuck the toes under here and lift the knees, but just a fraction off the floor, just a couple of centimeters. And knees come up and back down. Let's do this for a total of 5 times. So up, but just a little, and down. I'm getting a very considerable toe stretch here too. Knees come up, the navel comes up, knees come down, we don't lose any of that. Next time you lift your knees, then let's go straight back into downward facing dog pose. And legs straighten, hips up, stretch your shoulders, but then come back to almost kneeling, but hovering again, and downward facing dog pose. And almost kneeling, hovering, and downward facing dog pose. And while you're in dog pose,
Then pedal your legs, and that will give you a little bit more stretch to the back of your legs. Somebody, I think, once called this walking the dog. And then bring that movement to a pause. And let's take ourselves out of dog pose, either walking your hands back towards your feet or your feet to your hands. And coming up, nice and easy does it, with your head coming up last. All right, and then we'll move on to another strengthening. It's actually an awareness exercise, and we'll do this at the wall. So come to have your back against the wall. And in this kind of user-friendly way, the back is at the wall, but your feet, you're stepping out about 30, 35 centimeters away from the wall with your feet separated. When you come to this position, it's actually a posture check, and it's a very nice thing to do. So your shoulders come back to the wall, and maybe you can feel your shoulder blades there too. I'm going to bring my arms back to the wall, palms flat against the wall. And then instead of having head in sometimes what is a characteristic forward head position, bring the back of your head to the wall. And you'll probably feel taller for the adjustments that you made there. Then let's add the strengthening part of this, and we'll do a wall slide and bring yourself into a partial squat. Rest your hands onto your thigh muscles. You might give them a little pat and feel the tone of the thighs. And then as we push up out of our small squat, feel those muscles. They don't quite disengage, but they're much looser on the femurs when you're in standing position. And then take your squat again. And you might trace a line from the tops of your knees towards the hip fold and feel how those muscles can engage all the way into the hip fold. And that's something that we want to think about when we do the standing poses in a moment, is that this thigh muscle is important and needs to engage. It releases your hamstrings. And then come all the way up again. And I think one for the road. And coming down, if you want, if you wish, a little bit lower, so that there's almost something like a right angle behind your knees. And then feel your good posture again, the back of your head, the shoulders, and the bottom of your spine, your sacrum against the wall. And then come all the way up to standing, and we're going to move away from the wall for, I don't know what to call this, but it's chair pose, but anyway, you'll see. So grab your chair and have it on your mat for safety. And then take a nice comfortable seat on your chair. Comfortable for the moment. And slide yourself forward so that you're right in the middle of the chair. When you look at your feet, they're in a line and they're flat on the floor. And then from here, we'll come up to standing. And I'm noticing that my knees kind of wavered in that position. So I'm going to take the block again and have it between my thighs. I've got it on the narrow end this time and in line with the inseam of my tights. So think about this before you do it. You're going to aim to sit on the chair in chair pose, but we know that in the yoga collection of poses, the chair is not
really there, is it? So we bring our arms up, but we don't quite sit in the chair, but come down as low as you can, as though you could almost touch down and then come back up. And then maybe this time you could even try that. Your weight's back into your heels, your shin bones back. You touch down for a fraction and come all the way up. Squeezing against that block activates the inner thigh muscles, and the buttock bones are reaching back for the chair. It is there, but we're not using it in that ordinary way. And let's do one more like that. As we come down, feel the pelvic floor lift, the navel move back, and inhale and exhale down. Definitely a warming pose. I feel the reaction to that. We're going to do one more chair pose, and that is in the collection of standing poses, and it's called Utkatasana. Now, what will be helpful, we're going to do a little bit of a balancing pose in chair pose, is take your blanket that looks something like that to start with and make a log roll of it. So we're going to roll it until it finishes up looking like this. And placing it onto your mat, you're going to do a little step up and have your forefoot on the blanket, but your heels on the floor. So the front of your foot elevated and your heels down. And straight away, I feel that as another calf muscle stretch. Could say that from the back of your knees to your heels, downward, and then from the front thighs lifting up towards the hip fold. Relax your shoulders. And then from here, let's take chair pose. So bending the knees. We're doing this without the block, but as though we had the block between our knees, and then bringing the arms up alongside our ears. Buttock bones moving back. The top of your shins moving back. And inhale, coming upright. Let's do one more like that. Keep the weight towards the inside of your feet as you bend your knees. Not so much that you've bent your knees over your feet, so the knees directly over your ankles will give you a good movement for the hip muscles. Navel back, pelvic floor up, come all the way up, and lower the arms. And we're finished with that blanket for the time being. So we're setting ourselves up well with all these warm-ups for going into standing poses, and we'll do just one more awareness exercise. We know from experience that if we bend forward and round our back, that puts pressure on our spine. So the way to come forward in a forward bend is to hinge from the tops of your hips. So along with me, bring your hands into the tops of your thighs, the bottom of your torso, and take a bow forward from the hip fold, and then come back up. And even better, just to take any strain off the back, bend your knees a little bit and come forward from the hip fold, so hinging, and then unhinging, straightening your legs and coming up. That's going to come in useful in one particular pose shortly. So one more time, and knee bend, hinging forward, and unhinge and straight legs and coming up. Lovely. While we're here, inhale the arms and raise them overhead. And just feel that kind of deliciousness of the stretch carried through the outer shoulder blades, the sides of your rib cage, the sides of your waist, and then alternate the stretch and extend the right arm up a little bit more, and then the left arm, and alternating the sides and getting that last little bit of stretch through the outer shoulder blades, and then releasing the arms down. So that set us up very well for Trikonasana, triangle pose, which is a lateral movement. Step out wide on your mat. And let's turn your feet to the right. Raise your arms to shoulder height. Good. And steady balance on your 2 feet. And then let's take that lateral extension out to the right side and lengthen as much as you can over your right leg. Release your right hand down and then extend your left arm above your right arm. Let's see if we can create a little bit more hinging from the top of that right thigh and drawing a deeper fold at the top of the hip. And then also draw your right thigh muscle up towards that hip fold. We're going to release from the pose and come all the way up, inhaling. Turning your feet front and center, and then around to the left side. Good. And let's go for that side body stretch as much as you can. And left hand down, right arm up. Good. Even when you're in the pose, there might be a little bit more latitude for extending your ribs even further to the left, like you're telescoping the ribs to the left. And then from there, lift your tailbone. Draw the left quadricep, the front thigh muscle, up into the hip fold. And then breathing in, coming all the way up. And arms out to the side. Beautiful. Feet parallel. And stepping back to center. All right. So we've done Utkatasana and then Trikonasana. But the most important of the standing poses is Tadasana. So standing on your own 2 feet, feet a little bit apart, and feeling the points of contact with your mat or the floor, the base of your big toe, the base of your little toe, and slightly forward of your heel bone. Making contact with there wakes up all of your leg muscles, and then drawing up through the pelvic floor. With your arms, keep them a little separate from the side of your body, and especially in the upper part of your arms and your upper ribs. So you've got, kind of feels like there's more, like an empty feeling around the armpits. Drop your shoulders. Good, Tadasana. And let's take the first warrior pose, warrior 2 pose. Warrior 1 should be first, you would think, but it's a little bit harder. So once in your setup, turn your feet to the right. Extend the arms out from your shoulders. And then take a knee bend, like a lunge with the right leg. And at the same time as you extend back into your left leg, left arm. Turn your head, look over to the right side. Draw up long through the abdominal wall towards your sternum. And then feel in your knee bend, the right knee moving back a little bit for stretching the right groin. Lift your sternum, drop your shoulders. Draw the right buttock in and draw the right shoulder blade in. Looking forward and straight leg. Turn the feet all the way around to the left side and take the lunge there where your left knee is above your left ankle and you're looking left. Looking out towards the horizon, but then feeling into the back leg, straighten it as much as you can. Draw the left buttock in and the left shoulder blade in to square off the chest. Turning your head front and center, straight left leg, turn your feet center, and as you step in, lower your arms. Tadasana. You could think of it, as I do, as home base. Relax your shoulders. Actually, do a couple of shoulder rolls. They never seem to go astray. And the other way. All right, and then moving on to Parsva Konasana, another partial lunge position. Take up your block for this one. And then step out. What distance are we aiming for? Well, probably at least 1 meter, but maybe more than 1 meter, depending on your height. Turn your feet to the right. In this version, using the block, I've got the block placed on the high end in front of my right ankle. Keep your hands onto your hips, and as you take and drop down into that lunge, check it out. We don't want the knee to shoot forward of your ankle or behind it. It's just directly above the front of your right ankle. All right, good. Then we move into a lateral extension. Extend the right arm out to the right side. Stretch out over your right thigh. And prop yourself up, right hand onto the top of the block. Because you're elevated like this, it's easy to rotate the torso. So turn the right side forward, bring the left side back a little bit. That's beautiful. The right buttock engaged and pressing forward, and the right shoulder blade. Let's complete the lateral part of this movement and take the left arm overhead and stretch back into your left leg. We don't want a forward head position that will have you drop your chest, so bring the back of your head back too. Come all the way up with your block. Feet front and center, and feet to the left side. Turn the feet to the left. Replace your block. Let's start upright, arms out wide. I think I'll just hold to keeping the right hand on my right hip. Lunge the left leg. Draw the navel up. And then extend out away from the right leg. Bring your left hand down onto the block. And as I was saying, with that arm straight, you can draw up and more easily rotate your chest forward. It's the left side of your chest coming forward. And then right arm up. Lift the navel back, lift the pelvic floor up, and then take the right arm overhead. I'm going to keep that arm very straight, and the back leg, that's the right leg, straight too. Bring the left buttock forward, bring the left shoulder blade forward. Lift your tailbone. Inhale and come up, and all the way up. Turn your feet front and center. Leave your block close to you. You'll use it later. And step all the way back in
Tadasana. And then let's take resting Uttanasana. So fold your arms so that your thumbs rest in the crease of your elbows. Stretch those arms up. Remember, slight flexion of your knees, a hinge from your hips, and coming into as deep a forward bend at this moment that your body will allow. So read your body. Take a couple of deeper breaths where you feel the weight of your arms, not as something that's dragging on you, but more the tips of the elbows drawing you nearer to the floor. Lift your buttock bones up towards the ceiling. Release the back of your head to the crown of your head and let your chin come a little closer to the jugular notch. And then loosen your arms, let them drop, dangle. Bend your knees over your ankles and come out as you went in with that hinge at the hips and your knees bent. And all the way up. And let's continue. And now we will move into Virabhadrasana 1, the Warrior 1 pose. Step right foot forward and left foot back. Rest your hands onto your hips. And then we're going to raise the arms in a moment when we come into the lunge position. So let's do that. Let's first take the lunge and adjust the hips in this manner. So we could kind of cosmetically adjust the hips and just square them. But this might work better. Draw the inner right thigh back into the hip fold. So drawing the groin back into the body. At the same time as bringing weight to the outside of your left foot and tightening the left buttock. Now let's bring the arms up, either arms parallel or if you can, the hands coming together overhead. Release the diaphragm ribs, the ribs at the bottom of your front chest, and let them connect downwards and inwards as you look up. Good. And then let's come up, straight right leg, lowering your chin, lowering your arms, and step up, and right foot back. And here we are, we're a little asymmetrical, and let's see what we can do to adjust that. So drawing the, take the lunge first, this probably works better. Drawing the inner left thigh back into the hip fold, and then turning the right thigh in, and the weight's on the little toe side of that foot, then tone the right buttock and bring the arms up overhead. The arms come up. We'll create a little back bend, but the diaphragm ribs, the bottom ribs, are still downwards towards the hips. In shorthand, we say ribs to hips and looking up. And then lowering the arms, straight front leg, step up. And we'll continue in this way, left foot back. So the narrow position for the hips. The first three poses that we did had wide hips. Now we narrow the hips a little bit by compacting them. So outer hip muscles press in towards the midline of your body. And we're going to take a forward bend. So slot your hands into the crease of your hips, top thighs, bottom torso, and take a little forward bend. Keep drawing the hips in to the midline of the body, so nice and compact. And then wherever you can, reach your hands down onto your right leg. And at this point, see if you can deepen that hip fold. Draw the right thigh into the body, the right groin into the body. Let the left hip come around. Lift your navel center. Lift the pelvic floor. In the last part, you might find that you can straighten the front leg a little bit more. Where you started with a knee bend, most probably. Now we're going to work with the hamstring stretch. Then, to release from the pose, do bend your knee over your ankle. Inhale, come up with your arms stretching forward and all the way up, and then stepping forward as you lower your arms. And right leg back. I don't think I mentioned the name of this, Parsvattanasana. All right, and then as we've done before, we're going to make the hips narrow. As you do that, then navel center draws back, pelvic floor lifts up. Reach for the ceiling. Keep the front ribs contained as you come forward. The knee bends a little bit, that's your left knee, as you come into the pose. And then little by little, see if you can deepen the left hip crease and bring your hands down a little bit lower. If it's there for you, holding the leg might be the place for you to rest today. Then for the last part, I'm going to work on straightening, stretching the hamstrings. And then to release from the pose, bend your knees a little bit, bring your arms forward and up, and inhale, exhale down. All right, now the excitement begins. We're going to do a balancing pose called Ardha Chandrasana, and with the help of the wall, works really well. Going to take up your block, just one of your blocks. Now, when I do this pose, it shows up as kind of choreography for me. So I've got the wall to support me, and I'm going to take a wide stance again. I'm near enough to the wall, so my buttocks touch the wall and the shoulders are the shoulder blades. The block, when you're in your wide stance, bend your right leg and place the block in front of the little toe right foot. And then once you're there, come back up. The block is placed for support. We're going to keep the left hand on the left hip, bend the right leg a little bit, slide the back foot in, step by step, and then reach your right hand down onto the top of the block. Raise your left leg parallel with the floor. Now, once you've done that, you've got a lot of support from the wall, but you could just wean yourself off of it by bringing the right buttock forward, right leg is your balancing leg, and your right shoulder blade forward, and you might be heading towards freestanding a little bit more. Extend the left arm overhead and stretch all the limbs. Gradually come out of the pose, left hand, left hip, bend your right leg, look for the floor with your left foot, take your block with you, and switch sides. It's a beautiful pose, but it takes some deep concentration. Replace your block, and it's in front of the left foot little toe by about, I don't know, a foot distance or, something like that. You've got your wall for support initially. Keep your right hand onto your right hip. Going to bend your left knee into a small lunge. Slide your back foot in, and you're reaching to the floor or to the top of the block at this point. And then the back leg comes up. That's your right leg. And right arm up towards the ceiling. Now let's work the pose and draw the lower buttock in. That's your left buttock moving in towards the pelvis and your left shoulder blade. That might take you to free balancing. And then take your hand onto your hip again as you exit from the pose. Bend the left knee, look for the floor with the right foot, take your block with you, and turn your feet front and center and step all the way back in. Now we're nearly there. Now I'm not counting the standing poses, but I think we're probably at 9. And that is a great finishing pose. Let's see, 9. 10 is Uttanasana. So we're going to first take Prasarita Padattanasana. And I'm using 2 blocks for that, but you don't even need them. It's just that it seems like it's a nice approach to a wide leg forward bend. So step out that wider distance than you have in the previous poses. And this time your feet stay directly facing forward. In your upright position, just feel your footing. Such a nice feeling to feel your footprints. Little toe, big toe, heel. And then slot your hands into the hip fold and take a little forward bend. Your knees are slightly bent at this time to take any shock off the back or the hamstrings. And then reach your hands down. You can have your fingertips on the floor, or I'm using the support of the blocks initially. When I went into my forward fold, I also dropped my buttocks back behind the line of the mat. So leaning forward at this point and lifting the tailbone. You'll feel the upper reaches of the hamstrings probably. And since this is where we will leave the standing poses for the time being, then bring your hands back. And let's see if we can deepen the pose. Releasing the head and the neck down and keeping the shoulders up. Take one more step back with the hands. From C7 to the crown of your head, downward. Tailbone upwards. Beautiful. And then take a walk forward with your hands again. Come up right onto your fingertips and draw up the arms straight, all the way, elbows straight, into the shoulder joint. Lift your chest a little bit, lift your chin a little bit, extend forward, lean forward with the torso. And then we're releasing from the pose, so flex the knees slightly and go heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, all the way into the center. Keep the knees bent as you come up, fully into standing. And right here at the end, let's take Tadasana again. And then the arms relaxed by your side. Open the space a little bit, upper arms and upper ribs. And we're going to set ourselves up for a version of bridge pose that we could take into shoulder stand. So with my chair, and just give me a moment to show you the setup. It's important to get yourself set up well for this. And the chair very nearly to the wall or up against the wall. And here are my 2 blankets. So my yoga blankets. I'm going to place one on top of the other. With the smooth edge of the blankets facing away from the chair. And then the next part of this is according to your own anatomy. So you can experiment with this. And what I'm going to do is to take a lying down position with my shoulders on the edge of the blankets and my neck overhanging the blanket so there's no pressure on it, and obviously the back of my head onto the floor. So now I moved into the supported position for my legs on the chair, the support of the blankets underneath my shoulders. And I'm near enough to the chair to hold the chair legs. When I do that, if I get a good grip onto the front chair legs, I can pull my shoulders down and under. And you could practice that a few times, is do a shoulder press. Press your shoulders down and feel your back muscles engage to an extent where they hadn't previously. Shoulders press down and the upper back muscles engage. Now I'm all set up to do the next part of this, which is to draw my knees closer to my chest, slide my heels in, and then use the thrust of my heels and my feet against the seat of the chair to lift up into a little back bend. And I'm already there. Now this is the time to notice whether you got the best position for your shoulders and your neck. So it's very easy to slip off the blankets. They're kind of smooth and slippery. But if that's happened, then rejig so that you have support of your shoulders with no pressure on your neck. I'm staying up into the back bend position and holding the chair legs. I'm in hip extension now. So if I lift my hips and move my front thigh muscles towards my knees, I can activate my buttocks and my hamstrings for that lift. And let's try a one-legged stretch. So balancing your weight onto your right foot, extend your left leg up. Replacing left foot, swapping, a little bit like the marching we did before, and right leg up. And let's do one more round like that. When your left leg is extended, flex your foot and extend your heel up a little higher. Then that foot down and right leg up. Flex your foot, extend up through your heel a little bit more. And let's take a rest and coming down and lowering the buttocks down. And leave your lower legs up onto the chair. We're going to have one more round with this, which is a version that's nearer to a shoulder stand. So come up into your small bridge again, and your feet close to the edge of the chair. You can hook the heels or the arches of your feet over the edge of the chair. Release your hands from holding the chair and bring them onto your back. Let's see. Where it works for me is to have my hands flat against my buttocks at the moment. And then my hands help me lift up a little bit more. Move your elbows in a step. Just rock from shoulder to shoulder. And see if for you and today, at this particular time, you can bring your hands a little closer to your back waist. From here, if I take one leg away, I might be able to bring my second leg away. And I'm in a version of shoulder stand that looks a little bit like legs up the wall, Viparita Karani. So not quite straight. And then back to the chair, and 2 feet on the chair. And then tuck your buttocks under and begin to lower your buttocks towards the floor. Actually, now do slide off your blankets until only your buttocks are supported onto the blankets and your shoulders and your head and your neck off the blankets. You could leave your legs up there on the chair or bring them to the floor. Take a moment to consolidate because you have been upside down and in that completely different relationship with gravity. So much changes within the body. And we're going to move out of the pose now for a rotation of the spine, kind of neutralizing the spine. Roll to the right. And take a folded blanket to sit on, or a bolster if it's there for you. And we'll do the simplest of all the twists in cross-legged position. And I'm sitting myself up well, buttock bones, my support forward on my sitting bones. And then I'm going to bring a block behind me. Take your left hand onto your right knee and your right hand behind you. In my anatomy, my arms are a little bit shorter, so I use the block underneath my back hand, underneath my left hand. You might be able to just have your hand onto the floor. And then coming up into your best posture, lengthening the frontal body and looking over your shoulder. And then turn your head towards the screen. Lift your chest up again. Beautiful. And then let's swap legs and swap sides. It's right hand, left knee, left hand behind you. And this probably is the most important part. Bring back your elongation of your spine from your tailbone to the base of your skull, crown of your head up, breathing as you rotate. In the final position, looking over the opposite shoulder with your sternum high. Well done. And then let all of that go. Give yourselves a good leg stretch in Dandasana. And we're moving into the yoga relaxation. So for today, and since we have the chair so handy, we could do legs on the chair. And that's what version we'll take today. It's likely you'll still need a blanket for the back of your head and your neck. or I like that for myself. And everything is towards self-care here and making yourself the most comfortable possible. We don't really do this often enough for ourselves. I've got my eye covering here, so an eye pillow, and you might have just a scarf to put over your eyes, but it does make a difference to have that covering because your eyes will relax very quickly. So I've moved into position where my lower legs are supported. And the nice thing is we did strengthening work for the front thigh muscles and in particular. And so in your position, the thigh muscles, the bones, the ligaments, the tissue just relaxes. And if you palpate your thighs now, you can feel the muscles just loose on the bone all the way down into the hips. So taking time to assure yourself that you're the most comfortable that you can be in this position and doing any shifting around that you might need at this point so that the body can assume a still position and the floor, the mat, the props receive the weight of your body, the whole body, the heel bones, the calf muscles, buttocks, a sense of the back being long from the back waist to the shoulders, and the upper limbs completely supported with the crease of the elbows soft. Take time, if you wish, and swallow very lightly and feel the inner walls of the neck and throat, releasing the tongue soft and wide on the bottom of your mouth, the lower jaw slackening. Bring attention to the back body for one more time. Feel sensation at the bones of the heels, the two bones of each lower leg. The buttocks wide and soft. Feel sensations at the frontal body where the abdominal wall releases and softens into the back body, especially the upper abdomen relaxed, so that the diaphragm is free. And finally, rest your awareness, your attention on the heart, or in yoga we call it the heart center. Coincidentally, this is also your breathing center, so you can feel sensations of breathing. Allow the eyes to look down into the heart and create a focus there, a soft focus. And in a moment we will move out of the shavasana. So you might take this last part of it just to consolidate. Notice the feelings that we cultivate in the relaxation, a sense of calmness and quiet. And with as little disturbance to that as possible, begin to draw your legs towards you and roll away from the chair to the side. Wait there for another breath or two, lying on your side before coming up. Or stay if you like. We have a ritual way of completing a yoga session by placing hands in front of the chest in prayer position. And here, and coming back to the body, if you lift your elbows a little bit, then you can take the breath into the upper front ribs and the upper side ribs and feel your breath. And then incline your head towards your hands, really towards your heart, and feel your own energy there. We do the practice to cultivate that particular warmth and kindness and goodness of our own hearts so that we can share that with other people. And so we say, Namaste. Thank you.